Hello, welcome to Now Tell Us. This is a program where people come and tell us stories. They come and educate us, they come and inspire us. They even come and highlight a cause that is of passion to them. And every time we have some great guests, and so is today. We have a great guest with us that is going to talk to us about spreading positive change. Now, someone said that change is the only constant, and I believe that. And my prayer and my wish is that the change that happens around us be positive. And so, what an honor to have with us today, Rick Ornelas. Welcome to the
Oh,
show.
thank you very much, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's also a pleasure that we have you here with us, and we are looking forward for a positive change by the end of this episode. Great positive change in people, in society. I don't know what lies ahead of us. All I know is that there's something good ahead of us.
Yeah, agreed. I agreed. I think there is, despite all the negative times and the difficult times that are happening in the world, there's always the opportunity for some positivity and for change in the right direction.
Okay, and here we go. Before we go right into spreading positive change, we would like to know who is Nick Ornelas? Where is he from?
So I live in outside of Houston, Texas. I'm originally from Southern California, from Los Angeles, and I think I consider myself first and foremost, aside from any career or any area of expertise, first and foremost a father and a family man, because I have three beautiful daughters who are all now grown. My youngest just moved out just last month, but my wife, I've been married to my wife Tanya for 26 years, and my daughters and my family are the reason for everything that I do in life, and so they're the most important thing to me. Above that, I'm an ultimate success coach. I'm a best-selling author, and I'm a speaker, and the founder of iSpark Change. So I wear a lot of hats, but the most important hat would be, family. Family would be the most important one that I wear.
And I love that. I love family. And it's good that you tell us you've got an experience in two digits twice and growing.
Yeah.
26 is not the joke. I mean, and when you observe children learning to walk, to talk, and then experiencing children leaving your home, now that's quite an experience. And so we are going to focus in the direction that you wish us to focus. And as we cover this topic, spreading positive change. So, what is it about spreading positive change? Where would you like us to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'll share in a second where it started for me, that the journey of spreading positive change. But first, I'll share just what it's about. What I consider spreading positive change is any action that we do anytime throughout the day, any day of the week. It doesn't really matter, but it's any action that impacts others in a positive way. And it can be as simple as
Mm-hmm.
smiling at someone. It can be me being on your podcast and someone in the audience hearing something that resonates with them, connects with them in a positive way. It can be reaching out to a friend that you haven't spoken to in a long time, sending them a message, and seeing how they're doing. And then it can be much, much bigger. It could be feeding the homeless or doing some kind of charitable work or anything. I mean, even writing or having a podcast, all those things, they're just examples of ways that we can spread some positivity. And so that's how I see positive change, is that every day, each one of us has opportunities to spread positivity, to spread positive change. And we can choose to go that way or choose the other way. And so we all have these choices throughout the day, but I see it as much bigger than that, because I think what we don't always realize, and I was the same way for a long time, is we don't realize that each individual action has the potential to change someone's life, to impact them for a lifetime. And, you talk about, you mentioned, my family or kids, and just every word that you say to a young child has the impact to affect them for the rest of their life, and then future lives, people that they might impact. And it's that ripple effect that we see from one action to another, that it spreads far and wide. And that's why I think, having that awareness of what we do on a daily basis can really have an impact on spreading positive change, for sure.
Mm. And I'm curious to know, because there's a big part of the world that is negative. I mean, anywhere that you go, as you go into school, you go into jobs or businesses, you meet with a lot of negativity. And you being someone who is positively focused and spreading that positivity, was there a time in your life that you that idea came to you, and or in other words, is there something that impacted you to follow this path of being positive and spreading positivity, something that was maybe a positive influence, or maybe, and sometimes it happens to be a negative occurrence, a negative event that leads you to think, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow this direction. Which was it
Yeah,
for you?
absolutely. And I love the way you phrase the question, Anthony, because to answer your question, it was actually a little bit of both, and a little bit of negative, a
Mm-hmm,
little bit of positive, and I'll explain. So all my life, I've been a fairly positive individual. I'm the kind that, sees the glass half full rather than half empty type of individual, right? So I was always been
mm-hmm,
more on the positive side. However, there's still things that happen in life that get you down. And when I was
mm-hmm,
younger, if I got in a car accident, it'd be terrible. And, I'd get affected and depressed. And so, impacted in such a big way. And, my mother used to say, don't make a mountain out of a molehill, just make a mountain out of a molehill, just something so small. And, and I remember, that, although I was positive, still I would get affected by things that, probably you look back and you're like, oh, that's just silly, right? That's just nonsense.
mm-hmm,
But what happened was in 2020, when the pandemic started, so you could consider that the negative catalyst, if you will, when the pandemic started and the world
mm-hmm,
went into quarantine, and we're all, have to stay home, and um, couldn't leave the house and everything. That's where everything changed, because I had a coaching business that all of a sudden went down to, to almost nothing. My clients requested to stop their services. I was the
mm-hmm,
COO for one client, and I had to be laid off. And so I found myself getting very anxious and worried about the future, because I realized I had no control and no income, worried about my family and what I would do and how to take care of them. And so I started to get anxious and fearful, and that lasted for a few weeks. And then I realized that who was I to be, to think those things, because I knew better, and I knew that I had a choice to choose to be positive in this situation, and to look for opportunities in the bright side, and look for new ways that I could, improve. So I started to
mm-hmm,
write, and I wrote a blog about using the time as an opportunity, and using the time to help others, and to be positive and to be grateful. And then I decided to write a book that had been in my head for 20 years. My book, 12 Hours of Heaven, Lessons for a Better World, which I had always said, oh, I don't have time to write a book. I don't have time. I'm not, I can't do it. It's, it's going to be too hard. And I had always thought those things. But then in 2020, when all that happened, I said, okay, now I have time. Now I have the time to every day, right? You're stuck at home every day. So I
mm-hmm.
wrote my book, and in the time of writing my book, I went through a period of spiritual connection and deeper understanding of who I was, and what was important to me. And that's where the idea for spreading positive change was born. That's where the idea for I Spark Change, my organization, was born, because I came to understand that what I was explaining a few minutes ago, that all of us have a choice to spread positivity. All of
Mm-hmm.
us can impact others on a daily basis. And so
Mm-hmm.
I completely changed my whole life, changed the trajectory of my life, my career, by creating I Spark Change, and writing my book, and focusing on building and growing growing that community, and doing all the things through iSpark Change. And so, yes, I mean, the answer to your question is, it was positive, negative, both, but it all put my life on a completely different path, the one that I'm on today that leads me to, talk to you today.
Mm. And there's something I love in the conversations that I have been having in the recent past. When we mention the pandemic, yeah, there's a lot of people who went through some tough time and we lost a lot of lives. But then every time that we are speaking with people who are doing something significant on this particular day, they focus back, they look back at the pandemic and say, the pandemic was something positive in my life. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Well, all the negativity was happening around the world. There is something that came out of it. And you wrote a book at that time. I happen to also have written a book that was written a book that was uh, uh, just about 20 years as yours. So it's good that, as they say, when life offers you lemons, you make
Mm-hmm.
lemonade. And I'm glad that you did that. I'm glad that you did. And we keep going. Now, let's go to uh, well, a bit back to when you started your family. How was it starting a family? Because I know there are many people who listen here and they don't know how to get started in life.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So my wife and I got married young. I mean, we were I mean, we met, we were 22, 23. We got married 24 years old, and we were very young, and we didn't really know what we were doing. We just knew that we loved each other, and we knew that we wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. And we had um, we had my first daughter right away. We had my oldest daughter, Ciara. We had her right
Mhm,
away, and so much of caring for her was just a learning process. It was just a figuring it out, trying to take care of her while building our relationship. And and I'd say that, the when I was younger, I mean, I was more selfish, and I was still a young guy that was focused. I would go play basketball, and I'd do sports, and I'd be very involved and work, and my family wasn't as I wasn't as focused on my family. Sure, I loved my family, and we were building a family and building our marriage and everything. But I was still someone that was still figuring it all out. I had to do a lot of figuring it
mhm,
out, and what helped me to figure it out was really taking some situations, some negative situations in my life where I realized that it could all be over very quickly. We were in a major car
mhm,
accident with my wife and two daughters at the time, when they were very little, where we could have been killed instantly, and we weren't. And after things like that, they really caused me to reflect and to um, understand that my family was so precious and that they were the most important thing in my life. And I began to focus more on my energy and attention on them. And 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 then I think that was a big part of where I really developed a love for helping others and serving others. I think a lot of that came from from different tragedies that that for better or for worse, it forced me to focus on what's important. And and then in doing so, that's how I've learned a lot over the years, over my relationship with my wife, and with my raising my kids. And it's interesting because my wife and I were mentoring a young couple that's very young, younger than we were. They're 20 and 21, and we're mentoring them in their pre-marriage, through our church, in their classes for before they get married. And as we've been speaking to them, we're sharing that the most important things in our relationship, and I feel in any relationship, are trust and communication, and to really have a very solid foundation of trust, and then to have communication, open communication, with your partner, and your kids, and all those that you're close with. Because I think those are the foundations of all relationships. Love is great. Love is going to be there. And
Mm,
there's millions of songs about love and how powerful it is. I think without the trust and communication, then then the relationship can't thrive. And so that's really been what has been the driving factors for us in all these years for family and our relationship.
thank you very much for sharing that. Trust and communication. That's starts us in the direction of getting much more of what to know much more from you of what has sustained your family. But we'll go to that before we end this show. Now, I wanted to mention these two occurrences that you mentioned. There's a tragedy, a reflection, and a positive change, which is in the car accident. The tragedy that was worldwide, which is the pandemic, a reflection and a positive change. I think this is how we should focus our life happenings. Happening, a reflection, and a change. What would you say of that?
Yeah, I think that's completely accurate, Anthony, because in any situation, like you said, you get the lemons, you make lemonade. In every situation, whether it's positive or negative, we have a choice on how that's going to impact us moving forward.
Mm-hmm,
Okay. So if someone, for example, when the pandemic first hit and I started going into that anxious time, initially I was choosing to let it affect me in a negative way. Initially, for a few
mm-hmm,
weeks, I was letting it bring me down and make me anxious and fearful and worried. And so it was having a negative impact on me. But then I made the conscious choice to, no, I'm going to choose to let this impact me in a positive way. I'm going to take those lemons, and rather than having them, burn my eyes or sour my, my mouth, I'm going to make lemonade, right? Make something sweet out of them. And it's the same thing for any situation, whether it was that accident or what have you, is that I think we always have the choice. And I think for a lot of people, and I've been there myself, for a lot of people, we don't realize that we have that power, that we have that choice to choose happiness, to choose positivity. And so
mm-hmm,
when something happens, either become a victim or we let it bring us down, and then we spend far too long um, being negatively affected by something before we decide, okay, now it's time to move on. And I'd say the older I've gotten, or the wiser I've gotten, or the more I've developed myself, and the more I've read and the
mm-hmm,
more I've learned, is that I've been able to shorten that time. So for example, instead of something, quote unquote bad happening, and it affects me for weeks or months or a long period of time, now something happens, I think about it, I reflect, and I move on very quickly. And that can be, a day, that can be an hour, that can be minutes. Whereas, in the past, it might take far longer. And I think you're right. I think that we all have, things happen, we reflect, we decide, how they're going to affect us and move on. And I think in learning to go through that process quicker, that's how we can grow as individuals.
Thank you for that. And at this point, I want to also take this opportunity to thank all our viewers who are watching us live or listening to us. And I take a mention of one, Andy Charles. Thank you very much for leaving us a comment. Love these stories. They help us to remember what really matters. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Anthony. We need more like this. We thank you, Andy. And we thank each and every other of you who is watching. We need your feedback. We need your encouragement to keep on going, because each and every one of us would always need a word of an encouragement to keep moving. Now, before we move into the next maybe great question, I would ask, I'm curious to know, how do we manage to shorten this time of reflect and change, as you say, that we need. Now you found a way of how to shorten that
Mhm.
period. How do we find our own?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I didn't know the answer to that for a long time. Like I said, I didn't even fully understand the impact of that accident until 20 years later when I wrote my book. So it took a long time. What I've discovered over the years, what works for me and others that I've coached, is to ask ourselves a lot of questions. Is to let questions be the answer to getting through that situation.
Mhm.
And there's a technique in psychology called positive reframing, where we take a situation and we start asking ourselves questions on how to reframe it in the positive light. So how to
Mhm.
look at this situation and say, okay, well, what can I do in this situation? If you think you're in a situation where it's completely uncontrollable, you have no control, like the pandemic, I'm stuck in my house, I can't do anything, I can't go outside, I can't work. What can I do? Well, now I have time. I've never had time alone, time to do this. So what can I do with that time? I'm going to write, right? I'm going to choose to write and do something positive with. And and I think by asking ourselves those questions, how can I how can I do something with this situation? What are the positive
Mhm.
aspects of what is happening? Even if it's a good situation, what did I learn from this situation? How am I going to grow from what just happened? What am I grateful for what just happened? How is it affecting me? How is it going to, impact me moving forward? Like just reflecting and
Mhm.
asking ourselves all those questions, those help a lot. And what helps me to do that, to do those reflection, is I journal. I journal at the end of each day, and in the beginning of the day, at the beginning and end of each day, I journal gratitude. So I journal the things I'm grateful for, and I journal other things that I've done throughout the day and what I've learned. And that practice has really helped me a lot in that reflection process. That reflection process of asking myself those questions and then answering them and journaling it.
Thank you. Uh, would you be kind to tell us a bit more about your book?
Oh, sure. So my book, 12 Hours of Heaven: Lessons for a Better World, it's up there on the shelf. Yeah, right there. I'm backwards. It's right there. Um, it is it's a fictional story that was inspired by the accident, and I can explain that in a sec. But it's a fictional story about an angel that is sent down from heaven, and he finds himself trapped in an elevator with 10 individuals, 10 complete strangers, all totally different individuals from all walks of life, young, old, men, women. And they're trapped in an elevator overnight for a period of 12
Mhm.
hours. That's where the name comes from, 12 Hours of Heaven. And they don't know he's an angel. They just think he's another person trapped in the elevator. And during that time, he's able to help them all through the biggest challenges that they have in their lives. And um, he's able to help them move past those challenges, and they learn lessons. That's the subtitle: Lessons for a Better World. So they learn these lessons that they're able to take with them along the way, after they leave the elevator.
Mhm.
And these are simple lessons that things that I've learned throughout my journey, and that really anyone can understand. Things like practicing gratitude, which I just mentioned, or being present in a situation and not having your mind focused on something else, or having faith, or loving, or serving others. These are all things that are not old lessons. I mean, not new lessons. They've been around for thousands of
Mhm.
years, right? And all throughout history and
Mhm.
society. Um, but I put them in a creative story, in a vehicle that allows the reader um, to connect with the characters, to resonate with what they're reading, and to understand them in a very easy message. Um, and
Mm.
the book was inspired, Anthony. The book was inspired 20 years ago, when 21 now, and a half years ago, almost, well, 22 years now, when I told you I was in that accident with my wife and my kids, my
Mhm.
two daughters who were small at the time. We were in this major car accident, and after the accident, I went through a period of reflection where I said, okay, why how did we survive, and why did we survive? That's when I started to ask myself these questions. Why did we survive? How did we survive? um, Witnesses thought that we were killed, and the analysis of the accident, they said, with the car, that for sure we could have been killed or severely hurt, and we were completely unharmed. And people at the time were saying, oh, there was a miracle, or a guardian angel protected you, or there was something like that. And that's where the idea of this angel that came down and would help people was born. And after the accident, I when I was reflecting, I wrote what I called a to-do list for every day, things that I wanted to live my life by. And it's given me guidance over the
Mm-hmm.
past 20 years. And some of the things that were on that list are the same lessons that are in the book. And like being grateful. And so those things that I learned, those lessons, were things that have guided me over my lifetime, and things that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
share. And I always had this idea of this angel, and the story came to me when I was reflecting after the accident, and that's how the story in the book was born.
Okay, beautiful. And Angel helping people. And then we have Rick Ornelas, who also helps people. Can you tell us maybe what ways do you help the people? Someone listening here could benefit from maybe your experiences or the knowledge that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. And
In what
yeah,
ways?
thank you for asking, Anthony. Um, I help people in different ways. So as what I do on a regular basis, being a coach, being an ultimate success coach, I coach. I mainly work with entrepreneurs and business owners, helping them to get clarity and guidance to navigate the roadblocks that are preventing their success. So I help them to grow
Mm-hmm.
and scale their businesses. So that's one way. Also through my writing, not only do I have the book, I'm writing a second book, but I also write for a number of websites, for Life Hack and different websites that I'll write. So share some different things there on how to, just improve and be better. And then the last way would be through my organization, I Spark Change. Through I Spark Change, I'll do speaking. I'll do public speaking in different places for businesses and organizations and schools, and motivational and different types of talks to help them understand the power of positive change, understand the power of social impact. And with I Spark Change, we have very active social media. So we have a very active Instagram. We have a YouTube channel and Facebook group and so forth, and TikTok, even LinkedIn. And on there, we share inspiration on a daily basis, motivation. We share stories of other people that are doing positive work in the world to help amplify their message. And lastly, we have a podcast. We have the I Spark Change podcast, where we feature stories and individuals that are spreading positive change, that are making a difference in the world. And so we do a lot of different ways. Like I said, there's lots of different ways, but all of it is around the theme of serving others and spreading positive change and social impact.
Wow, that's wonderful. So, for all of you who are listening or those who are watching us, it's www.isparkchange.com. Go and follow up with Rick and get to know much more about his family, his business, and also get help in your business through the experiences that he's had. Also, get his book and read it and see what the angel was doing on earth. Yeah, so this is just about it for today. It's been such a wonderful time having you, Rick, here on our episode. And we really appreciate you taking your time. We also appreciate all those who've been watching. And just a reminder to anybody who may be new here, you can get past episodes and future episodes at www.nowtellus.com. And if you have a story and you'd like to tell us, if you have something that you'd like to tell us, you're also welcome. So we'll get to see you soon. But before we go, would like Rick to leave us with just a few words that we should always remember. Which are they, Rick?
I would say, just very simply, Anthony, for everyone that, and thank you for having me on, by the way, but I would say that for everybody to realize that they can make a difference in the world, that every day they make an impact on others, whether they realize it or not. Every day they impact others, and that they can change the world every day. And so to choose to spread that positive change, to choose to have a positive impact on others, and that's how we make the world a better place.
Wow, beautiful. Each and every day, you're impacting someone, whether you like it, whether you know it, or whether you intend it or not. You are impacting someone's life. Now, that's a great message. We really appreciate you. And there's so much we could have covered on this episode, but that's the reason why people should follow up with you and learn much more. I know there are some questions that they would like to ask you on different areas. So remember to follow up with Rick. Again, I say isparkchange.com. And now, I've been your host, Anthony Mwerore, and together with our guest today, who is Rick Ornelas, we are saying bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you.